Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something really fascinating, the origins of large format photography. We picture large format now, these amazing big wooden view cameras, the bellows, those huge sheets of film. Have you ever really wondered where that all kicked off? Where did this tradition actually begin?
It's funny you ask because it's almost, well, the biggest irony maybe. Photography actually started large. The very first practical photographic process, the daguerreotype, invented by Louis Daguerre in France back in 1839. It didn't use tiny negatives, no. These first cameras, they used big metal or glass plates. So they were effectively the first large format cameras right from the get-go. The goal was immense detail from day one.
Wow. Okay. So it wasn't an evolution towards larger, it started there. And I read that the French government stepped in pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely. They bought the rights to Daguerre's invention, and then they did something pretty radical, especially for the time.
Which was?
They gave it away, released it to the public totally free, no patents, no restrictions.
Seriously, free.
Yeah, think about that. It wasn't just generosity. It was, incredibly strategic. It basically open-sourced image making right at the beginning.
That must have just lit a fire under everything.
It really did. Imagine if it had been locked down. Instead, you got this explosion of camera making, experimentation all over the world almost instantly. It made photography a global thing super fast.
And the tech didn't stand still, I gather. Things moved quickly after Daguerre.
Oh, incredibly fast. By the 1850s, 1860s, you start seeing the wet plate collodion process taking over from daguerreotypes. And that's where we really see the cameras we recognize today starting to emerge, using glass plates, often 4 by 5 inches, 8 by 10 inches, sometimes even bigger, the classic large format view cameras.
Wet plate collodion. That sounds complicated.
It was. But Frederick Scott Archer's invention in 1851, that was the key. It made a large format, well, much more practical. You got clearer images. Crucially, you got reproducible negatives, unlike the daguerreotype, which was a one-off positive.
Ah, okay, so you could make multiple prints.
Exactly. And you could make contact prints with just astonishing detail because the negative itself was so large. That really laid the foundation for what we think of as modern large format photography. The quality was just stunning.
So here's a question then. If things were evolving so fast, and later on, you get George Eastman and Kodak making photography convenient with roll film, why did large format hang on? Why didn't it just disappear? What kept people using these big, cumbersome cameras?
That's a great question, and I think it really boils down to two core advantages. Things that honestly still matter today for certain photographers. First, image quality. Simple as that.
Just the sheer size of the negative.
Precisely. A huge negative means you can make huge prints without losing detail, often, like I said, just by contact printing. No need for enlargement, just negative straight onto paper. The level of sharpness, the tonal range, it was unmatched.
Right, so it was always about getting the absolute best possible image, not about convenience.
Never about convenience. It was about ultimate quality.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the second point, creative control.
How so? What kind of control?
Well, these cameras, with their bellows and the movable parts, the front standard holding the lens, the rear standard holding the film, they weren't rigid. You could tilt them. You could shift them up, down, left, right.
And what does that let you do?
It gives you incredible control over focus and perspective. You could tilt the lens, say, to get sharpness running from something very close all the way to the horizon. Or you could shift the lens to photograph tall buildings without tilting the whole camera up, which avoids making the building look like it's falling backwards.
Okay, I see. Stuff that's hard or maybe impossible with a regular camera.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially back then. And honestly, even with digital, achieving those kinds of movements optically is still something special to large format.
Which explains why you still see, serious architectural photographers or fine art landscapes photographers using them today. They're still after that ultimate quality and that precise control.
That's the lineage. It connects directly back to those very first principles.
So looking back through this deep dive, it's amazing to think this tradition, large format photography, it really does stretch back nearly 200 years, right back to Daguerre and Archer.
Absolutely. It wasn't just an early form of photography. It fundamentally shaped what photography could be,
Yeah.
making huge, detailed prints a reality and giving photographers this almost total command over the image. It was revolutionary.
So here's a final thought for you listening. When you think about how those early pioneers, Daguerre and Archer, prioritized that ultimate image quality and that precise creative control above all else, how do those core ideas still echo today? How do they shape what we expect from images and what we aspire to create, even with our phones and digital cameras, way beyond those beautiful old wooden boxes? Something to think about. Join us next time for another deep dive.